Thank you for checking out Real Talk About the Town, an online candidates forum. This episode will feature candidates running for two offices, District 4 for the Alameda County Board of Supervisors and District 5 for the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. None of the responses have been edited, and the order in which you see them will be randomly selected. All of the candidates have agreed to participate in the forum, except for Gerald Pichunk, who's running for District 5, and Omar Farmer has suspended his campaign in the District 5 race prior to the start of our production. Thank you for joining the forum. We hope it helps you to cast a more informed vote.
According to a November story in the San Jose Mercury News, 68 people have died in Santa Rita jail since 2014. Why, in your opinion, are so many people dying in the sheriff's custody? And as a supervisor, what will you do specifically to reverse this trend? How will you get two other members of the Board of Supervisors to support your proposal?
I'm Laurel Plimier. I am a U.S. Army veteran, a mom of two teenagers, and I have lived in Alameda County in District 5 for over 20 years. My professional background is as an attorney and a data scientist, and I have been a nonprofit leader with the League of Women Voters for the better part of a decade. I'm running for Alameda County Supervisor because we deserve smart, community-focused solutions, and I have the knowledge and the leadership to bring them. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to participate in your forum and answer your questions. So the first question is, according to a November story in the San Jose Mercury News, 68 people have died in Santa Rita jail since 2014. Why, in your opinion, are so many people dying in the sheriff's custody? And as a supervisor, what will you do specifically to reverse this trend? How will you get two other members of the Board of Supervisors to support your proposal? So the number of people who have died in the Santa Rita jail since 2014 is high, partly because there are people in the jail who are suffering from mental illness, and the jail is being used as a treatment center, which is something it is ill-equipped to do. Another main contributor is the lack of oversight over the sheriff's office. It has already been 2.5 years that the Board of Supervisors has been grappling with the details of implementing a Sheriff's Oversight Commission. It's going to be a sad day if that commission still isn't in place by the time the new District 5 Supervisor is replacing Keith Carson in January, pretty much a year from now in 2025. It shouldn't take years to decide how to staff a commission. The lack of sheriff's oversight and the unwarranted deaths in the Santa Rita jail have cost the county millions of dollars. So in addition to advocating for sheriff's oversight, I will also champion community-based programs that are known to have a positive impact on reducing crime, and so they would reduce the numbers of people who are incarcerated in the Santa Rita jail. These programs include violence interruption programs, child poverty tax credits, diversion programs for at-risk youth, and restorative justice programs. As far as getting two other members of the board to agree, I believe these types of programs are widely supported, and I think strong leadership is required to maximize the external sources of funding, to provide oversight of existing programs, both through internal agencies and nonprofit organizations, and to ensure that we are all working together toward a common goal. And with effective systems in place, I think board members on the Board of Supervisors are more likely to agree to policies and budget dollars.
First, I want to thank the Brotherhood of Elders for the opportunity to speak to you all, and all of you bring tremendous experience and knowledge and wisdom to the field. Let's talk about Santa Rita and the tragedy that Santa Rita is right now. The biggest problem with Santa Rita Jail is that it is not a jail. In fact, it is the largest mental health treatment facility in Alameda County. When you look at the population in Santa Rita, what you'll see is that at least 60% of the people that are being held there are being held primarily because they have mental health issues. And of that 60%, 40% have serious mental illness. Many of those folks are nonviolent offenders and should never have been in jail to begin with. And were our mental health system responsive and preventative in its approach, those men and women would never have been in Santa Rita to begin with. So problem one is that we need a system that engages in preventative mental health and that can do outreach and engagement before we use the jail as a mental health facility. Second, once folks create an offense, they don't have to be in the locked facility, and they can be in mental health treatment facilities in a whole series of alternatives that we should be able to create outside of the jail. We can create tiered systems of care from secure to secured perimeters to community-based facilities that could provide far better care and could allow people to live with the dignity that they deserve rather than being in the largest mental health facility in Alameda County, which is a jail. Finally, when we provide mental health facilities in a locked facility, we lose all of our federal funding. So the $40 million that we're spending in Santa Rita right now could be $80 million in the community. It's just wrong.
Hello, I'm Nikki Fortunato Bass. I'm currently the president of the Oakland City Council, and I'm running for the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. Thanks for letting me share this information with the Brotherhood of Elders. So the first question is about deaths in Santa Rita Jail. It's completely unacceptable that people are dying in our jails, and as supervisor, I will partner with the county to address the problems of incarceration and lack of mental health and housing in the county. The death of Maurice Monk illustrates the problems in the county. He should not have been in Santa Rita Jail. He'd been there for more than a month because the court refused to reduce bail. He had mental illness for which he didn't get treatment, and his offense was minor. The guards and the health staff didn't enter his cell for days while he lay prone, and that death could have and should have been avoided. Instead, a father died, leaving young children behind, and the county jail paid $7 million to settle a lawsuit, instead of properly caring for someone with mental health issues and investing in treatment and prevention. As supervisor, I would take on the recommendations from the Reimagining Adult Justice Initiative and those to come in the spring from the Care First Jails Last Task Force. And this will help ensure people with mental illness, substance use disorders, or simply those who are poor and can't afford housing get the care they need in the community. These recommendations also include civilian oversight of the sheriff, and learning from Oakland and other places, this oversight body should have real power to investigate the root causes of chronic jail deaths, have a majority of community members who are directly impacted in these seats, and also be able to enforce policy change. These recommendations also need budget investments. As Oakland's council president, I've been able to work with the community to implement recommendations from our Reimagining Public Safety Task Force, which I co-chaired. For example, I co-authored legislation to create our crisis response teams in the fire department with community advisory board members. I know how all branches of government work. I've worked with the administrator, department heads, our city attorney to get things done. And at the county, I would work towards building a level of agreement and consensus among my colleagues with information working with our county staff. So in terms of the second and third vote, I know that it would require partnering with the county across the branches of government, as well as with the community, pushing from both the inside and the out, as well as staying focused on the goal of addressing incarceration and criminalization as an issue of racial equity in public health.
Hello, my name is Ben Bartlett, and I'm Berkeley City Council member and candidate for Alameda County Supervisor. And first off, I want to say that my heart goes out to the families of those who have lost their loved ones while incarcerated. And I especially want to reach out to the family of Maurice Monk. They deserve justice and fairness, and what happened to him is unacceptable. These jails are not focusing on rehabilitation. They're more for warehousing the mentally ill. And this is negligence on our part. There's insufficient mental health screenings, poor data sharing, poor intake process, and there's a steady stream of narcotics seeping into the jail causing deaths. And people like Maurice, who had schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, his family was unable to get prescriptions transferred into the jail. And he died within a month of being there. And all of this could have been prevented if he was able to get the care that he needed. Now, my plan is to focus on mental health care from the onset and to reorient policing and to focus on criminality and to fill the void with new resources and new healthcare workers and an entirely new health apparatus in Alameda County. And I'm going to create a finance district to finance 15,000 mental health care beds. And this plan is endorsed, by the way, by Don White, the former treasurer of Alameda County. And I'm going to do what we did in Berkeley, where I created the specialized care unit. This is a mental health response team that deals with people in crisis. And it's a new form of housing with prefabrication and telemedically enabled units. And a service provider, in this case BOSS, on the first floor. All the developer funding the costs, and the city rents to own over 10 years and saves a lot of money, and it goes up very fast at scale. And so at the county, if we ramp this up, we can fulfill the need for 15,000 healthcare beds and successfully reorient law enforcement away from mental health care and into crime. And if we do that, you'll see better outcomes. You'll see a reduction in crime, you'll see better health outcomes, and less people on the streets. And so this is my plan. And in conclusion, I just want to say that we have a lot of work to do, but the need is great. We've got to accomplish this, and I've got the tools and the track record and the vision to do so. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Greg Hodge, and I'd be honored to serve as the next member of the County Board of Supervisors for District 5. With regard to your first question, what has taken place at Santa Rita Jail is inexcusable, immoral, and flat out wrong. For example, what happened to Don Nelson, a 58-year-old Black man, should never happen to anyone again. He died in custody. His family says that he sought medical attention, was placed in a holding cell with an alleged white supremacist who stomped and beat him to the point that he needed to be hospitalized. Though his family tried to be there to support him, authorities at Santa Rita did not notify his family on his whereabouts for almost a week. He died alone. The Board of Supervisors organized a year-long process and heard the same message overwhelmingly from their constituents. Supervisors say they are unclear if voters want effective oversight of law enforcement. Meaningful, effective, independent oversight of the Sheriff's Department has to include independent legal counsel for the Oversight Board, separate from County Counsel. An Oversight Board made up of diverse individuals who have a background in knowledge, not representing law enforcement or county officials. Candidates for Oversight Board should be recruited by a selected panel of county residents for appointment by the Board of Supervisors. An Inspector General with subpoena power with authority to provide professional, full-time assistance, adequate resources that includes investigators and a policy analyst. The Reimagining Adult Justice effort and initiative proposed by the late Supervisor Valle could take us a long way. It could help us strengthen reentry systems, reduce recidivism, shrink the incarcerated population in Santa Rita, and prevent the victimization of Black and Brown residents. In terms of how we get a vote, and 3 members of the Board of Supervisors vote in that way, it requires advocacy with other members, and ultimately, if folks don't agree, to organize public pressure if necessary to bring those votes to bear on this issue.
Hi there, my name is John Bowders. I'm a candidate for Alameda County Board of Supervisors for District 5. I want to thank you for asking these questions and taking the time to listen to my answers today. Your first question is about 68 people who've died in Santa Rita Jail since 2014 and what my opinion is as to why that's happened and how we can reverse that trend. Well, there's a couple things that I would point to as ways to reverse that trend that I'll start with. I think first is that we have too many people who have an untreated or undiagnosed mental health issue staying in Santa Rita Jail, and that's not an appropriate place to treat, care, or house a person who has an unmet mental health need. A couple things that I've worked on in my professional career, in my time as a legislative advocate for ending mass incarceration and my work around survivors of violence and mental health needs, is we need to have more diversion programs. The Reimagining Adult Justice Initiative that Alameda County studied and has begun an evaluation of, but needs to complete and continue, includes diversion as a way of reducing racial and ethnic disparities in our jail, and also reducing the number of people who are in the jail that have a mental health need. I worked very closely with former Senator Lonnie Hancock and members of the state Senate's budget committees back a number of years ago to bring money into California to pilot something called LEAD, which is the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, where law enforcement basically agrees from police officers up through the DA not to book or charge a person who is cycling in and out of jail for either mental health based issues, sometimes addiction related issues, petty crimes, drug crimes, things like that. And instead, there's an agreement to divert those people to community-based organizations that provide intensive healthcare and addiction interventions for folks. And in agreement, voluntarily agreeing to go through the diversion program ensures that the person doesn't end up in the criminal legal system, but instead they get a health intervention. This has been piloted successfully in places like Seattle, Washington, and other communities across the United States. And I really strongly believe that we need to do diversion here. As it relates to what's going on currently at Santa Rita, obviously there needs to be an independent oversight board to oversee and monitor what happens at Santa Rita. They should be empowered with their own independent counsel to give them guidance and advice, and they should give regular reports, updates, and recommendations to the Board of Supervisors to provide additional policy guidance or budget amendments if that's necessary. What I would do to get other board members to support my proposals, I think that the biggest thing I could do is actually introduce them to people who do that work. That's what I did with the state legislature. I actually brought an entire panel of people from Seattle down and held a 2-hour informational hearing in front of the California State Budget Committee to introduce them to people and let them ask questions themselves. And that would be the same work I would do to help inform and educate my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors.
Hello, this is Chris Moore, County Supervisor candidate for the 6th District, and I'm here to answer a couple of questions on video. So the first one regarding Santa Rita Jail. 68 people dying in Santa Rita Jail since 2014. It really does require much more in-depth investigation. And I think to reverse the alarming trend, we need to take decisive and swift action to understand what really are the root causes of these deaths. And we need a very independent and an unbiased investigation. And in my opinion, there might be multiple factors, that created the disturbing situation. Likely systematic failures. We've had a lot of problems in the county jail over the years. There's just lapses in protocol. It's obvious. We may not, be conducting adequate physical inspections, and that was certainly the case most recently. And we need to really have proper mental health assessments as well. So there may be sufficient oversight and accountability of the prison operation to ensure the safety, but we really need to investigate that and take a look. So, as county supervisor, I intend to specifically hold those accountable and to hold them to look at driving solutions and reviewing those solutions, and if they make sense, implement those solutions. So it's an investigation, identify programs to solve this. It's probably through training and other means, and then create broad public awareness of what really happened here and how we can fix that in the county jail. And that's what I'll do. Thank you.
Alameda County has a budget of over $4 billion and healthy reserve accounts, yet serious challenges remain in numerous areas, including the unhoused. Please give your assessment about how county leaders have established and addressed their priorities. If elected, what would you do differently?
For question 2, you've asked about how, with the resources that the county has, how we would assist people who are unhoused, and what I think about the current priorities that have been established, or what I would do differently. So I think the county's done a really good job with budgeting as a practical matter. They've had a very balanced budget. They've maintained good reserves. And yes, there are still an unmet need here in Alameda County on the services level. I think what needs to happen first is optimization. So what do I mean by optimization? Well, currently we're deploying services and sometimes we're deploying them repeatedly to the same people, but we're not getting better social or health outcomes for those folks who are in need. So we continue to deploy services that could be made available to assist other people who need services here in the county. Something that needs to be looked at is how do we optimize the services? So if it's predictable that a particular user of our social safety net system is going to consume a certain amount of public safety time and dollars, public works time and dollars, health dollars, mental care dollars, other emergency room or uninsured visits, and that's going to be a total cost to the system over a number of years if it goes continuously untreated or uncared for. How do we make a better investment? Right? So a lot of interventions could be really helpful for people who are what we call chronic or high repeat users of the system. So a health intervention that is often used successfully is a housing intervention. A housing intervention that's coupled with intensive supportive service care for a group of people who are the most common users of our system and take the most time and services from the county right now could be used to do things like dramatically decrease the number of uninsured ER visits those folks make, the number of police contacts they have, the number of times that they're in mental health crisis and require some form of an intervention that takes existing mental health staff away from other priorities or needs in the county. We can draw down and reduce the total demand that some folks have by making better investments and better optimizing the way we deliver services for some of the most chronic high need folks we have, which makes service dollars more available. So now we have services more available, so we are expanding service to new people using existing resources because we've better retooled our resources here, and those folks are getting better social and health outcomes. That would be my first priority, is to look at ways to make the system more effective. I have experience having worked for 20 plus years alongside and in organizations that provide community-based healthcare and mental health services to folks. I have ideas about how we could do that more effectively without having to necessarily increase taxes first or augment and expand the existing service net beyond what we have. I think we should optimize first. And then we should take a full and honest assessment of what still needs to be done and do what's right to make sure everyone in Alameda County gets care.
For your second question, frankly, it's difficult to discern the collective priorities of the Board of Supervisors. Individual members have their agendas, but as a body, they appear to be moving in ways that are very transactional at best. They don't speak and act as one body very often. If elected, I would listen to the community, which has been clear about the need to effectively address housing as a crisis, and the crisis of our unhoused, almost 6,000 people who are unhoused in Alameda County, public safety, and mental health and wellness for all county residents, with a particular focus on those who are most vulnerable. During the pandemic, I helped facilitate the development of a comprehensive recovery plan for the African American community through the African American Response Circle. Simultaneously, our Latinx brothers and sisters developed a plan for a coalition called Resilient Fruitvale. Our AAPI brothers and sisters worked on a plan for their community, and others in East Oakland worked with Healthy Havens Court. We wanted to address a range of needs like the expansion of universal basic income, rental supports, first-time homebuyer program, life coaching, and an African American wellness hub, among other ideas. The total plan had a $200 million price tag. It would have accessed $358 million from the American Rescue Plan Act, which are federal dollars. The county failed to act on those proposals at a time of deep crisis while protecting a nearly $2 billion reserve. Our county's most vulnerable deserve better.
Now, regarding the budget, the county budget is substantial, more than $4 billion, and it also has substantial reserves. While I'm not going to comment on the supervisor's priorities, I can say that for my family, their priorities didn't work. My mother was displaced, she almost became homeless, and I was told there was a wait list of 14 years for senior housing, while at the same time the county budget had a surplus of nearly $1 billion. So I realized back then that they were not allocating resources for maximum effect. I realized that they are still not, and we all see this. If you walk around, you see all these poor black men sleeping in tents, talking to themselves. Clearly there's a mismatch between resources and needs at the county. And so when I'm in the seat, I'm going to reorient the budget for maximum effect. And you can do this. You can leverage each dollar 7 times through private capital, through grants, through partnerships. There are a great many ways to extend resources if there's will. And if there's a commitment to people. And I will bring both. I bring commitment because I'm from here and these are my people. And I bring capacity as a former investment banker, an attorney. And in Berkeley, we've leveraged private capital and partnerships to drive massive results. And most recently, I helped create 1,000 affordable apartments, won a $1 million grant for public safety and gun violence reform prevention. I wrote the City of Berkeley's Health Equity Plan, which is now the health plan for the whole city of Berkeley. And I created health impact bonds. I've launched so many new forms of care and outreach in housing, from senior housing, right of return, affordable housing, ownership opportunities, shelters, and more. And as a result, Berkeley shootings are down 39%. There's a 5% drop in homelessness, while the county's up 22%. And just last week, I secured the verbal deal for 1,200 new apartments at Ashby Bart, and a groundbreaking community investment fund owned by the people. And we'll do more of this at the county. Thank you.
So the second question is, Alameda County has a budget of over $4 billion and healthy reserve accounts, yet serious challenges remain in numerous areas, including the unhoused. Please give your assessment about how county leaders have established and addressed their priorities. If elected, what would you do differently? My priority is to bring the county government back to the people. There are a lot of disengaged community members who like to complain, but who aren't aware of even what the county government does for them or how they can be engaged in their government to make changes so that the government actually provides services that they might need. I will focus on stepping out from behind the desk, getting out into the community, prioritizing engagement with community leaders. The county says that it is open and transparent, and on some level it is, but I believe we can do better. We need to create opportunities for engagement that work for the actual people in the community. Opening our office door in an office in the center of Oakland isn't sufficient. So together with creating more engagement, I will improve the messaging and the communication from the county, which kind of seems like a simple thing. But if we aren't really simply and clearly communicating what we're doing in a way that's meaningful to the community, we will continue to struggle to fill commission seats, which is a vital part of a healthy county government. And we will continue to have a disengaged electorate. I have done this exact work in my leadership roles with the League of Women Voters, both locally in Alameda County and across the entire country. I look forward to putting those skills to work as the District 5 supervisor.
Hello, this is Chris Moore again, candidate for District 5 County Supervisor. And question number 2. Regarding the unhoused and a $4 billion budget. You know, I actually, there's a couple things I did over the last few weeks related to this. So one, I helped count the unhoused in Count Us a few weeks ago. And I also visited West Oakland, where unbelievably there is still a lot of issues with the unhoused. They're living in squalor and filth. And the county spending $4 billion with about $3 billion of it going to Oakland. It's unacceptable that this is happening in our community. So it's obvious that we're spending money, but not really driving solutions. And there's an accountability issue. Many are receiving these funds, but they are either just kind of enhancing or maybe they're taking care of the homeless, but they're certainly not getting them off the street, and they're not giving them real solutions. In fact, when I'm out when I was in Count Us, and even this week when I was out in West Oakland and looking at the homeless situation, I asked them, why don't you go into shelter? Why aren't you in the shelters? Almost unanimously, they said, I would get killed if I went into a shelter. It is crazy there. It's unsafe. And they feel more safe living out on the streets than going to a county shelter. So something's wrong. So people do not care, or they are not really looking at why they are not driving results. So if elected, my first policy would be to drive clear goals and also to hold those accountable that receive any county funds that need to drive solutions, and they need to get the homeless and houseless off the street. We must quickly direct funds to those programs that are actually driving success. So let's look at the ones that are successful and provide those funds. We don't have to cut funds. We have to get funds to the right area and the people who are driving results and know how to drive solutions. And right now, it's not happening, certainly in West Oakland, certainly out in East Oakland on 12th Street and out on the Embarcadero, out on Willow Street and Willow and 26 out in West Oakland. It's horrible how those people are being mistreated by our community, and we absolutely need to address the causes and drive solutions.
There are 5 supervisors in Alameda County that have control over $4 billion of budget. And when you actually look at the budget of Alameda County, it should be a whole lot more than $4 billion. You know, many of you were here when Alameda County led the state. We led the state in innovation. We led the state in bringing EPSTT programs for children and youth and expanded opportunities for children and youth, and the rest of the state followed us. We led the state by piloting the first wraparound programs in the state. We piloted full service partnerships and showed the rest of the state what could be done and helped lead the way for the Mental Health Services Act. And right now, even though we have a budget of over $4 billion, it should be closer to $6 billion. We are leaving hundreds of millions of dollars on the table because we don't lead anymore. We don't lead the other counties, and we don't help follow the state's lead to be able to provide maximization of funding. So maximization of funding is an abstract term. It's not very important by itself. Let's talk about what that does. It helps children and youth have mental health services in every school in the county. We should be leading on that. It says that when a young person is discharged from the juvenile hall, instead of following a punitive path, we follow a path of restoration and supporting them and their family to make sure that they're successful and make sure that they have every opportunity. And when they mess up, to set limits and say, you may not do this. And it says for adults, we're going to provide you the necessary base income that you need and the necessary tools that you need to survive in a county where housing is out of control. And we're going to provide the supports that are necessary to create a base level below which no one should ever fall. We've fallen behind on these things, and we can do better. We can do better for children and youth by creating opportunities for mental health in every school and making sure that we maximize our dollars so that those $4 billion actually grow. We can do better by saying we're going to partner with cities to create housing, and then Alameda County with our mental health function is going to provide the funds for services rather than taking funds out of necessary housing services in order to provide those services. And we can maximize our funding by saying our jail is not going to be our biggest mental health institution. We'll create a whole series of options for people that can get them out of jail and can use those $40 million to become $80 million and be in the community and help people re-enter rather than have people isolated and segregated. Folks, all of you have so much experience in these areas, and you've seen what can be done. You saw what was done by Dave Kears when he maximized dollars. You saw what was done by Gail Steele when she reached out to social services and said, we can do better. We can do better with our $4.8 billion. We can make it more, and we can make it better.
The second question is about the county's priorities. So there are good plans and priorities such as Vision 2026, Home Together to address homelessness and reimagining adult justice. As council president in Oakland, When we had a group of new council members join, I worked with the administrator to create an orientation series, working with our department heads to share each department's mission, goals, and functions. We also had a retreat to establish priorities to guide our legislation as well as our budget processes. And as we move forward with our budget and legislation, we analyze those pieces against those priorities. In addition to that, as I mentioned, I led our Reimagining Public Safety process. That was a task force with hundreds of volunteers who did tremendous work, giving us dozens of recommendations. And in 2021, together with one of my colleagues, we prioritized a set of 12 recommendations to implement. We were able to budget for implementation also in 2021. And so we were able to move forward a series of recommendations around increasing violence prevention, increasing gender-based violence services, starting a crisis response program in our fire department called Macro, moving certain traffic enforcement from police to our transportation department, as well as transferring internal affairs investigations from police into our CPRA, our Community Police Review Agency. So in a relatively short period of time, in terms of how long it often takes in government, I was able to lead a process with community to develop a set of recommendations, lead a process through the council and through our budget process into implementation over the course of a couple years. And I think we need that same level of focus, that same level of cooperation across all the branches of government and a deep partnership with the community so that we can have the urgency to implement many, many recommendations that already exist for the county, as well as identify the budget resources.
The county has an extremely diverse geographic footprint, including urban, suburban, and unincorporated communities. In addition, the economic diversity ranges from residents who are deeply in poverty to those who are extremely wealthy. If elected, you'll be responsible for balancing the needs of residents in all of those communities. As the level of government responsible for providing services to the indigent, how will you address the needs of your constituents living at or below the poverty line versus the interests of the middle class and wealthier individuals in your district who are more likely to vote?
Our third question is about balancing the needs of residents in all of those communities, the very diverse communities across the district and across the county. So I currently balance many different interests within my diverse District 2 in the city of Oakland. It's a district that is racially diverse. It's also very economically diverse with different types of neighborhoods. And in representing my district as well as serving as the council president, I've been able to really focus on our mission of reducing racial disparities and providing services. And as a supervisor at the county, as our health and social service agency, we need to stay focused on the mission of reducing poverty and creating access to healthcare and services. And this has to drive our service delivery along with a focus on racial equity. Vision 2026 is one of the main plans for the county. And as stated in that vision, there needs to be a focus on eliminating homelessness, healthcare for all, employment for all, eliminating poverty and hunger, a crime-free county, as well as accessible infrastructure. And in order to achieve those things, it does require balancing the very diverse needs across the district, across the county, and staying focused on that vision and that mission. And so success will be lessening poverty, lessening those who are uninsured, and reducing homelessness.
The next question deals with the broad diversity of our county geographically in terms of its residents, in terms of its income disparity, and the impact of racism poverty, income disparity across the community has never been more apparent, and it was exaggerated even more with the advent of COVID. The problems were always there. We just got to see them in much more vivid contrast, and things have gotten worse, not better, since then. There's a false dichotomy implicit in the question that I want to address, and it assumes that the interests of higher income voters, people who have more sway, people who have more voting power in the community, is different from those who have the least in our community. And I believe their interests are actually completely aligned, and it's making sure that the community understands that how we hold those who are struggling in the community is as important for the wealthiest among us as those who are struggling the most and struggling with mental illness. We're seeing that now. We're seeing that every time we walk by someone on the street that we know we should be helping and that we choose not to because we're overwhelmed. We're seeing it in the crime that's occurring. We're seeing all of the consequences of the disparities we've created. The good news is there's so many ways that we can intervene as a community by engaging every member of the community, the business community, the social services community, education community, in a series of solutions that engage us all. Separating those interests is actually at the root of that poverty and racism, and making sure that we all come together to say, how are we going to engage folks that have not been engaged? How are we going to house folks in a way that's at scale and that holds the development community, the nonprofit community, and voters accountable for solutions? We also, as a management team, with the Board of Supervisors in the lead of that management team, have to make sure that we use every opportunity and that we execute on the programs that are going to support us. First, intervening in schools to make sure that we're supporting every young person. Second, intervening for folks that are struggling the most at the margins. And third, making sure that we have housing available by dramatically expanding the responsibility both of the for-profit development community and engaging the not-for-profit development community in a series of comprehensive solutions. These interests shouldn't be at odds with each other.
Hello, this is Chris Moore again, County Supervisor for the 5th District. And for the third question, how do we balance the diverse and the needs of the diverse community? So, we really are blessed with the diversity in Alameda County. It's amazing how multicultural it is. And I am committed to addressing those needs. It's really what I've spent years doing. In fact, I have international experience in when I worked in over 30 countries, working with lots of different cultures and collaborating and trying the foods and everything about it. And really seeing kind of the different conditions also across the landscape and here in Alameda County. So if I'm elected, I intend to empower those who are deeply in poverty, the indigent. We need to give them and ensure they have the basic human rights, such as public safety, affordable housing, access to health care, access to mental health care. They don't have that today. Many do not. And if, like I do, if you walk in the streets, you see that they're afraid, or they're afraid to go and get that type of health, or they actually don't know it exists. And the county is mandated to provide that to the community. They are mandated federally and by the state. And there shouldn't be anybody out in the community that's not receiving it. Once we get them off the street and once we help with these, they become many times productive members of our community. And that's what we have to strive for. So, Alameda County includes lots of urban, lots of suburban, unincorporated areas. There's lots of different areas. The county supervisors are, obviously challenged with providing services to these communities. But again, collaborating across the five and working with them, I think I can, and really the time I've spent out in the community, I think I can, in fact, I know I can drive better solutions for the community. It will be collaborative and really studying why, again, what are the root causes of these problems we have in our community. But that's what I'll strive to execute on when I'm county supervisor.
Your third question asks how I would balance the needs of people who are indigent with those who are better resourced or more likely to vote. This question speaks to what I've done for my last 20 to 25 years in my career. I began my career as a disaster services director for the Red Cross. I was in the AmeriCorps program. I leveraged that to get a scholarship, go back to school, and I became a homeless services outreach attorney in Chicago. So I worked with people who were unhoused and indigent in Chicago for a number of years. And then I was hired to be the housing programs director at Cabrini Green Legal Aid, where I was a tenant and eviction defense attorney for those who lived in public housing in Chicago. All my clients were indigent throughout my career. I came to California 13 years ago, and I was hired to be the homelessness policy and services director at Housing California, where I did advocacy for extremely low income housing funding across the state, and also policies that would change and improve the lives of people who are unhoused in California. For the last 9 years, I've worked at the Alliance for Safety and Justice, which is a BIPOC-led organization, and we're rooted in an effort to end mass incarceration and recenter the public safety discourse and resources for community-based health in communities of color, which are those that are most over-policed and under-resourced when it comes to crime survivor assistance. My career has basically been spent working with people who are indigent. While there are people who are well-resourced and more likely to vote, they're also more likely to come into your office and ask for assistance when you're an elected official. We should serve everybody who is a constituent of ours equitably. But the big difference is that we can't wait for people who are low income, unhoused, speak English as a second language, or are afraid of contacting the government because of documentation status to come into our office for service. That's not how that works. So I think the bigger question is not so much how I would balance my time and make sure that I gave equal time to folks who are indigent and those who are well-resourced. It's where do I spend my time? And I know that in order to get services to people who are most in need, you have to be in the community. It's not okay to just be behind the desk waiting for someone to show up and ask for help. If we're going to truly serve Alameda County's most indigent people and be the social safety net that we're supposed to be as the county government, that requires us to be visible, accessible, responsive, and present in our communities. That's something I've done for 20 plus years in my career. I understand how to work with community-based organizations, faith leaders, volunteer groups, neighborhood watches. I've been doing that work all along. And so as Alameda County Supervisor, I will continue that work and be a visible and accessible presence in the community, helping bring our resources to people without having to make them ask us for it in the first place.
The third question is, the county has an extremely diverse geographic footprint, including urban, suburban, and unincorporated communities. In addition, the economic diversity ranges from residents who are deeply in poverty to those who are extremely wealthy. If elected, you will be responsible for balancing the needs of residents in all of those communities. As the level of government responsible for providing services to the indigent, how will you address their needs needs of your constituents living at or below poverty versus interests of the middle class and wealthier individuals in your district who are more likely to vote? So I will be present in the communities where the constituents who need the services are. I think we've shown with the persistence of our problems like homelessness and schools to prison pipeline that we're not sufficiently addressing the needs of the people who are living at or below the poverty line. If we look to our neighbors, and that's, neighboring counties, neighboring states, and other communities, we can look to neighbors who have implemented effective solutions, and we can focus on making smart, data-driven decisions that address these needs of the people who are living at or below the poverty line. Simply saying, oh, we want to provide services is not going to make it so. The solutions exist, but we have to have the courage to implement them. We have to do the hard work of engaging stakeholders, including people who don't often have a seat at the table. We can say that we're implementing policies that are helping underserved communities, but the results of those policies often tell a different story. So if you're hungry and I give you shrimp pasta, but you're allergic to shellfish, I have not helped you. If you're barefoot and I give you shoes, but your feet are 3 sizes bigger than the shoes that I've given you, you can't wear them. I haven't helped you. We need to be actively engaged in our communities, actively working in partnership with existing nonprofit organizations who are on the ground in the communities. We need to be providing leadership so that we can add to each other's effectiveness instead of duplicating efforts and working at cross purposes.
To your third question, we have to focus on the quality of life for all of the county's residents, but equity requires us to address differential resources to meet unequal need. If we address the needs of the unhoused, we are helping support middle-class voters with a county worthy of their investments in their homes. If we address social isolation and depression for our seniors, we are making the full community healthier. If we address the root causes of desperation and criminality, we're making the community safer for all of us. A fully resourced community is a safer community. It's a vibrant community. It's a prosperous community. I would have to believe that for all of the conversations that we've had as a community about equity, about fairness, about justice, that our mission as a county would be to serve our most vulnerable and therefore improve the quality of life for all of us.
Yes, this is the challenge of our time, really, to marry the needs of the poor with the desires of the well-off. And at this point, we're in new territory where the wealth gap is at an all-time high. And my district in South Berkeley, believe it or not, has prepared me for this. My district has one of the richest men in the world. Yeah, that's right. He lives in South Berkeley. And we also have homeless people and poor people and black people and middle-class black people and poor black people and poor Mexicans and wealthy Mexicans and wealthy white tech workers and teachers and nurses and seniors, the whole gamut. We literally have the entire panoply of Americans from each strata living in my district, and I've been reelected twice, most recently with 69% of the vote against multiple opponents, because I understand that this system functions as a whole, and each piece fits into one another. For instance, a senior citizen in treatment and care produces up to 8 jobs, and when you leverage what's called the wellness economy, when you hone in on driving care to the most indigent people, the people that need help the most, new jobs are created. And then those new jobs can be parceled out into new groups and small businesses. I wrote the City of Berkeley's City Contracting Equity Plan. So bringing black businesses to Berkeley is my core mission, and it's been working. And to help fund small businesses, I was on the loan board for the city. And most recently, I pushed for the largest expansion of small business support in Berkeley history. And that being said, people in business are happy, and people getting served are happy. And so the key element here to making all this work is to marry success on all fronts. You never sacrifice one for the other. It's always got to be a win-win. If the wealthy elites want greater response time for police, then you ramp up care for the poor so police can focus on crime. If the wealthy elites want bike lanes, well, then you make bike lanes serve as areas of medical care. So, you always find the way to harmonize these disparate needs, and that's really the only way to make it work. And I want to say this. We need to focus the county's resources on new wealth creation. We should always be getting at helping poor people become unpoor. And so I created ownership housing in Berkeley, affordable ownership, and the Ashby BART station, new transit village. There's going to be a whole complex of affordable ownership condominiums. We need more of this. Again, getting at wealth building is key because the status quo is trending us downward. So we need to arrest that downward decline by making everyone happy, but doubly focus on creating wealth among the poor.
After the election, you will be either the only new board member or one of 2 new board members. You have had little time to prepare for campaigning or learn about governing at the county level. What have you learned the most about governing as a supervisor, and what are some of the things you still need to learn?
The final question is about what I've learned through the course of running for supervisor, what I've learned in my career up to now, and as a new supervisor, what I'd need to learn. I'm really stepping into the shoes of a giant. I've known Supervisor Carson for more than 30 years, and I've watched his public presence and his mastery of both detail and macro picture. I have a tremendous amount to learn to try to follow in those footsteps and to try to create a new path that incorporates what I hope I bring to the table, which is experience in both the detail of program implementation and the macro of having worked with state and local government closely for over 30 years. I joined the Alameda County Board of Education when we had one of the most divisive boards in the history of the county. They couldn't get anything done. They treated each other and other people terribly. And we've moved from that to being one of the most cohesive decision-making bodies in the county. We did that because we listened to each other, we listened to community, and then we make decisions. And when we disagree respectfully. I need to learn the individuals and the systems. I need to learn the level of detail of budget that Supervisor Carson mastered. And I need to learn how to bring those things together in a way that we can act more quickly about urgent situations. People are dying in Santa Rita. People are dying on the streets, and people are being treated poorly across every dimension of our county. We don't have time to be more deliberative than is necessary to make a good decision, but we do need to make sure that we engage, that we listen to everyone, and that we move quickly. What I need to learn is how we can work together. Those of you who are watching this video, those of you who have contributed so much to this county for so many years, and community members that can come together to provide real solutions for people who are unhoused, real solutions for students who are suffering and moving into positions where they are going to be unhoused or going to be in Santa Rita, and intervene in ways that I know we can by bringing together the resources that are available that we are not maximizing right now to the benefit of the people of Alameda County. I so appreciate all of you being here to listen to this. I so appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and I hope to be able to serve you. Thank you.
Hey, this is Chris Moore, County Supervisor candidate for the 5th District. And the fourth question related to, what have you learned the most about governing as a supervisor? I think actually the most interesting aspect, I've spent a lot of time, as I've mentioned earlier, out in the street and in the community, and almost everyone says, what's a county supervisor do? No one seems to understand that the county supervisors, and there's only 5 of them, but they control a $4.1 billion budget. They don't understand that they are responsible and they are mandated to provide over 30 services for the community: health and welfare, the sheriff, the community, sheriff's community, housing, mental health services, services for the youth. There's all these services that are supposed to be provided. And it has been a steep learning curve. I had to research it and look at it. I have actually spent a lot of time already with the county and speaking at county regular meetings on a regular basis over the last few years, particularly in housing and particularly in with the other offices and health and human welfare services with the county. But I'm still also learning just about the vast resources, and what's puzzling is, where is the money truly going? We certainly know it's going to the hospital and the hospital system in the county, but there's a lot of money spent that I don't think even the Board of Supervisors truly knows what's happening with that. And I think that is going to be the biggest learning curve, is figuring out where the funds are going and figuring out how we hold those that receive those funds accountable. and to delivering solutions and solutions that work and really solve problems in our community. We're not doing that today in Alameda County. And that's what I'm going to drive as county supervisor. Thank you.
So yes, coming in quickly to the office would be a challenge without question. But I have friends who are supervisors now and former supervisors, and I have friends among the National Association of Supervisors, and they're mentoring me and teaching me. So I have some insight. I also work with the county on a city level, so I understand some of the organs of the county. And I found that oftentimes, in general, life happens as it happens. And you're never ready for it, but you have to meet the moment. You have to trust yourself to engage the new day, and that's my guiding principle in life. Meeting the moment. And I'll do so again at the county, whatever it takes to win the moment. I'll gather resources, gather information, get support, and I will make it happen. Thank you.
The fourth question is, after the election, you will be either the only new board member or one of two new board members. You have had little time to prepare for campaigning or learn about governing at the county level. What have you learned the most about governing as a supervisor, and what are some of the things you still need to learn? You are absolutely right that we have had very little time. What I have learned the most is kind of the flip side of the same coin about what I still need to learn. Governing at the county level is an immense job with a lot of moving parts. It is impossible for one person to hold all of the information necessary to make smart and informed decisions. So it's imperative that each supervisor understand the parties who are at play, and that we have the ability to quickly and accurately distill a lot of information into its most important components. Again, as I've said in my answers to some of the other questions, it will be important to learn who all of the stakeholders are and to bring them into the decision-making process. There are a lot of powerful parties that have been influencing the Board of Supervisors for decades. It's imperative that we center our decision-making back on the people most affected by those decisions. Sometimes those perspectives are aligned, but sometimes they aren't. And I believe it's important to give voice to those people who have less power. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to answer your questions today. My name is Laurel Plimier, and I am running for Alameda County Board of Supervisors, District 5. You can find me at Laurel, Lorrel, the number 4, BOS.com.
The fourth question asks what I have learned so far about governing as supervisor and what things do I still think I need to learn. Well, I've learned a lot of things over the years in public office. I have served for 8 years as a member of the Alameda County Healthy Homes Board, including chair during that 8-year period. We provide services to families traditionally situated in older housing stock that are exposed to lead paint. We do home remediation to do lead paint abatement, and we provide care and treatment to children who are impacted by lead poisoning. I've been on the Alameda County Transportation Commission for 8 years, and I'm currently in my 3rd year as chair of that board. And I've been on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District Board of Directors for 6 years and chair of that board for the last 2, which works to regulate industrial polluters, including a lot of emissions in the Port of Oakland and other communities that are environmentally sensitive and have been overburdened historically by environmental racism. And in all those roles, I work very closely with supervisors from many different counties, especially those here in Alameda County. And I work with a lot of larger stakeholders who do and transact at the county level. And so what I've learned so far is I've learned that Alameda County is a very diverse and dynamic place, and that the people who live here are very hardworking people, and that they command and demand a lot of attention from the county, and they have a lot of unmet needs. What do I not know? I don't know everybody yet. And I know that one of the most important things about the county being a competent service provider and a partner to those in our communities is about getting out and getting to know everyone. And that's the work I'm going to really have to do still. There's a lot of people here in Alameda County who are invested in it. They love Oakland. They love where they live. They're really connected to their roots. Their family ties are here. And they want it to be a successful place. They want to continue being here. And they want to see it thrive. I'm a resident here in Alameda County too. I love this place. I've called it home now for 13 years, and I want the same thing for it. And what I need to do is spend more time in the community, meeting people who I have not yet met, to figure out how we are going to help bring up Oakland together, how we are going to make Alameda County thrive as a community that is just, that is equitable, and it's an opportunity place for everybody. So that's my commitment, and I know that I have a lot left to learn. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that I don't know yet that I need to learn, but we'll be learning, and I'm somebody who takes learning very seriously.
To your fourth question, I believe that there's some basic leadership qualities that I possess that will help me with the challenges associated with governing. First, I've learned to listen to what others have to say. As a professional facilitator and consensus builder, I've managed hundreds of listening sessions, racial equity trainings, school board meetings, and countless other community meetings in my 40-year career. That career includes 8 years as an Oakland Unified School Board member and other work that I've done with the Workforce Investment Board and others. Second, I've learned to lift up the best ideas, whether they are my own or those of others. Learning about topics that I don't have a deep understanding will be a part of my learning in the role of supervisor. Those topics include the intricacies of a $4 billion budget, labor contracts for the various collective bargaining units, and a deeper understanding of how our sheriff's department operates are some of the topics I want to know more about. Agency heads, staff members, labor, as well as members of the public who are served by our county will be the people that I learn from. And lastly, I will lead with courage and compassion to do the best for our community. Again, I would love to have your support. Please vote for Greg Hodge on March 5th for County Board of Supervisor, District 5. Thanks for listening.
Now, our fourth question is about what I've learned throughout this very short campaign process, as well as what I need to learn. And I think the main thing that I've learned is that a lot of what happens in government and in the county of Alameda is really about triaging serious and growing issues around homelessness and mental health, for example, rather than addressing the issues that would interrupt these problems and reduce them. And so there really needs to be a focus, and I think this is really clear from members of the community, activists and advocates in our community. There needs to be a focus on moving resources upstream in order to prevent what we're dealing with downstream, which is the high costs in terms of dollars and human suffering around illness, homelessness, and incarceration. I think another lesson is around needing more transparency on the county's budget. What are the reserves? What are the fund balances? How are funds unspent? And how can we reprioritize those resources where they're most needed? So this information, I believe, has to be more transparent. And again, given the work I've done at the City of Oakland as a council member over 5 years and as council president over the past 3 years, I want to take those lessons and focus on prevention and early intervention. Some examples of work I have done include the policies I've worked on in Oakland, including a ban the box policy, which I worked on as a community advocate before I entered office. That was for the old Army base redevelopment, where actually together with Baba Joe Brooks, who just passed, we worked together on a ban the box policy for the entirety of the jobs on the old Army base, the construction jobs as well as the operation jobs, as a way to get ahead and make sure that community members coming home have an equal chance of getting a job. And similarly, as an Oakland Council member, I worked on a fair chance housing policy, again, in partnership with community members. And this is actually the strongest fair chance housing policy in the entire nation and allows for returning community members to have an equal opportunity at having a home. And we know that when people have access to a job, a home, a good paying job, and an affordable home, together with healthcare and education, that will help to intervene and prevent folks going down a path that they may not otherwise go down because they have more resources. Now, in terms of what I want to learn, I currently have Wilmachan Hospital, formerly Highland Hospital, in my council district. I want to learn more about St. Rose Hospital. I want to learn more about the budget at the county. I also want to learn more about why there are so many vacancies and how we can address them. And I would take what I've learned at the Oakland City Council and apply those lessons to gaining a deeper understanding of our budget as well as our vacancies. So I think my time is up on this question. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to share information with all of you at the Brotherhood of Elders, as well as those who are going to be watching this video. Thank you so much. And you can find my website at www.nikki4supervisor.com. NIKKI 4supervisor.com. Thank you so much.